So it's my pleasure to introduce the two Dereks, Derek Heim and Derek Christensen, whom I'm sure many people in the room already know. They're both passionate about food security and other food issues, and they're both extremely generous of their time and expertise to regional initiatives, and I thank you guys for that. Derek Heim is Executive Director of the Dartmouth YMCA. He serves as a co-chair of the Southeastern Massachusetts Food Security Network, which is what we're talking about at this point in our agenda. And he also is in charge of Share the Harvest Community Farm, which is the reason why Derek Christensen first came to our area to run that farm, and currently has his own farm with his wife Kathleen, Brick's Bounty Farm, and as many of you know, Derek's doing a lot of really important research into nutrient-dense soil. So we have a lot to thank both of Derek's for, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
So, thank you, Susan. I guess this is the Derek and Derek show for you this morning. For the sake of time, we'll try to keep our comments a little shorter than planned just because of the schedule running a little late. But I just wanted to share, I guess, my background. For those of you I don't know, I'm the Executive Director of the Y. We have a community farm that we operate where we're currently growing about 45,000 pounds of produce a season and mobilizing over 2,000 volunteers to do the work. All of our food that's grown reaches about 30 different food pantries from Fall River to Wareham. So we're particularly proud of our work, as well as we understand that the need in this region for food security is crucial. I co-chair the Food Security Network with Bridget. Bridget's somewhere in the room back there. And it was basically something that came into place back in 2008 as a response to some recent articles at that time that were in the Standard Times citing food pantries that were in desperate need of food. They had their shelves were bare, they weren't providing the needs that they wanted to for the community. So we got together a group of a lot of like-minded individuals who wanted to try to solve some problems and try to bring some different types of thinking and solutions to the region. The network is basically a coalition of food pantries, farms, foundations, and social service agencies working together to combat hunger relief. We provide space for participants to collaborate and share ideas, as well as a clearinghouse to really get players at the table to speak to one another. One of the things we found was that there were a lot of silos going on, specifically in food relief. Agencies were all vying for the same funds. Agencies were all working to solve great big problems, but were not communicating with one another and really working as a team to solve the need. And I think for all of us, and anyone in this room can probably agree, that food relief is really important to our region because, I'm sure we all know someone in our community that might have struggled at a time where they've lost their job or their family doesn't have the means to put food on their table. So I think it's crucial that this work is happening. Our network is made up of a lot of partners, but I just highlight a few for you. Brick's Bounty Farm, Catholic Social Services, the Hunger Commission with Bill Schell, the Marion Institute, the trustees of the reservation, UMass-Dartmouth Sustainability Department, the United Way of Greater New Bedford, and lots of others. But we meet monthly, and we're meeting in New Bedford currently. We've been meeting for a little over 2 years now, and we have an executive committee that oversees the group, but then general committee meetings that are open to any agency to be part of and help solve this problem. I shared with you that the work dates back to 2008, and basically our security network, we operate around a systems-based approach, addressing food needs in the community. There's 6 principles that we like to follow. Low-income food needs, so really fighting the anti-hunger movement. Broad goals, looking at things such as food system assessments, community development, and the environment, such as the increasing need for poverty and hunger relief, and disappearing farmland. So that's another area that we're really focusing on. Community focus, which is building up the community's food resources and the ability for us to bring more resources to the community, such as partnering with local supermarkets to utilize their leftover foods and get them to people. Farmers markets, gardens, transportation in moving food from local farms to food pantries. Self-reliance and empowerment of those groups, really cutting that red tape that exists out there and making sure that There's no reason why Stop and Shop or Shaw's can't donate their leftover foods, but right now there's a lot of red tape that prevents that from happening. So we're looking at ways to really leverage community resources to cut through some of that. Local agriculture, so working with local farmers so that they know if there's a surplus from your fields that you're not utilizing, how you can benefit the community and give back to others who might be in need. Systems orientation, basically an interdisciplinary approach, crossing boundaries, looking at really different, intriguing ideas, such as one of the biggest needs, and just an example for you in emergency food programs and pantries, is the need for diapers. So working with Huggies and major manufacturers to get them to understand it could be very cost prohibitive for a food pantry to go buy it at a grocery store, but if we bought a tractor trailer load of those and got them to the South Coast region, it could really benefit those in need. I'm going to ask Derek to share a lot about the community food assessment that we're doing, and it's kind of a pet project of ours, and we really want to make sure that it happens. There's funding out there that's supporting it, but I just want to share with you a couple other things just for your knowledge. Our working groups basically work in different areas. So we're looking at a pantry network that currently works at looking at pantries and how they can better serve the community, advocacy and the awareness of food issues, capacity building, and a gleaning and urban agricultural program. If you don't know about us, I encourage you to follow our website. It's southeasternmassfoodsecurity.network.org. It was created about a year ago. It's got some history and background of what we're doing. Keeps up-to-date information on our working groups and what they're solving. There's a map of food resources, so if you know of people in your communities who need food, where they can go to get it. We have a food pantry and community farm network out there that has a donation board, whereas if you're a community farm and you have an extra surplus, you can list that up there, and then social agencies can call you and set up a time to pick up those items with you. And then obviously some great blogs for sharing other information. We recently, about a year ago, hired a coordinator who is working with the network and putting together, kind of bringing us all, convening us together and working to solve these issues on a monthly basis. The network coordinator recently has resigned, so we do have a position that's going to be opening up probably within the next 30 days for a coordinator for the network who works for the executive committee and the funders that provide the funding for this project. But I would encourage you to keep your eyes out there if that's something that you have an interest in or know someone in the community who might have an interest in that position. So I think I'll turn it over to Derek now to give you a little bit of overview on our food assessment and what we're doing, probably one of our largest projects we're working on right now, and it was one of my first hires. And I really knew very little about running a farm. And there's probably nobody more than I call on than Derek when I want to solve a problem. My background was I'm a chef by heart. I went to school and studied as a chef. I had a TV show on the Food Network, and that is my passion in life and was, but I really found the need to come back to the community and solve problems, and that's why I joined the Y and really have embraced this farm. But I can tell you Derek is a wealth of information. Sometimes I have to reel him in because he likes to talk, but all of his comments are always very valuable. So Derek Christensen.
I'm going to be rather brief today, and I think it might be time for us to revisit that television show. So, I just wanted to kind of give people a brief update on where we're at with the subcommittee that's working on the food system assessment. Kind of food shed analysis is a term I've often used in the past. And for folks that have heard me speak in the garden community, the farming community, probably everybody has heard me speak about the importance of soil testing. And so I'm going to just use that as just an example of what we're really trying to do with this food system assessment. On farms, we often advocate for soil testing as a means to make better decisions. And thinking about the finite resources that we have, especially related to labor, related to costs, we need to make sure that we're making a decision that's going to give us the best return or the leverage point going forward. So oftentimes, if we're working in commercial operations, I ask farmers, I said, well, have you done a soil test to get a chance? Because if you don't have that information, it's really hard to make a decision. Do you need to add trace minerals like boron, or do you need to add calcium or magnesium, and so on and so forth. What this food systems assessment is really looking at is that same type of information collection so that we collectively as a community can make those type of decisions. If we think about the resources that we have right now, we don't have infinite amount of time and we don't have infinite amount of resources, and we need to leverage those resources really wisely. So what we've outlined initially is sort of 15 goal areas across environmental, social, and economic areas that we'd like to gather more information so that we can, going forward, do a better job of figuring out which those levers are that we want to really turn on. The next is going to be March 19th. The next meeting is on Tuesday, March 19th at 10 a.m. It's been held at the YMCA South Coast offices on South Water Street in New Bedford. So if anybody's interested, I would encourage you to contact myself, and you can kind of get an idea of where we're at right now and where we're headed. We'll probably be in a little bit of a holding pattern, developing a little bit of ideas. This is really what we want to focus on. And then once we have our new coordinator in place, we'll be able to hit the ground running. Just briefly, some of those areas that we're targeting is looking at, so environmental, it's the conversation of preserving farmland. What is the acreage that we really want to identify in the region? What do we need to make sure is continued to be involved in active agriculture? Excuse me. On the social aspect, it's looking at household food security and increasing food access, away from just reliance on emergency food systems, but looking at kind of day-to-day access. And on economics, it's a lot of times looking at what type of job creation we can have within the agricultural community and within home gardens and so on and so forth. And I'll just leave you with this kind of point, which is I was speaking with Elizabeth Frary, her husband Vince, and Elizabeth have started a poultry operation in North Dartmouth last year, and they're operating what I believe to be the largest pastured poultry, both egg production and broiler operation in the area. And I was speaking to her about where she gets her grain, and she was talking about the co-op that she uses in Connecticut. And she said, one of the things that I hadn't realized, but by sourcing those grains locally, she actually had a really tremendous buffer against the costs that increased with grain as the drought impacted the Midwest last year. And so one of the things that we're really looking at from kind of an agricultural point of view is what do we do to create a system that's going to give us that buffer towards the impacts of the weather events that are certainly facing us as we look at kind of a national issue. We're not going to isolate ourselves and say that no food's going to come from outside of this region, but we want to think about what we can be doing so that as we experience tremendous weather fluctuations going forward, we're in a place where it's not going to have such a direct impact on the customer, the community, and so on and so forth. So certainly speak to me during the break if you have specific questions. Sarah Kelly is here from the Island Foundation. She's been involved with this process along with Derek. We can all answer questions, and I would invite you if you're interested. I know we've talked about this kind of 3-4 years going. Sometimes we've gotten starts, sometimes we've stopped. I think we're at a place where we're really actually going to turn the ignition. So thank you.
Yeah, if there's any questions, we're more than happy to take any questions that you might have. I don't want to stand in the way. Okay.
Yeah, could you please slowly say the website again and
Sure.
the date of the meeting and where it's going to be?
The website is www.smfsn.org. smfsn.org. We meet at the YMCA Association offices on 25 South Water Street in New Bedford. Our next meeting is March 19th. I will leave some business cards too here if anyone would like to get on our invite list of just for meeting reminders and all that. I can make sure you're on that loop.
Right. And also you mentioned how many people are actually working on the project? How many volunteers are there?
Are you referring to the Sharing the Harvest project?
Sharing the Harvest.
We have over 2,000 volunteers that are working in our fields a year.
And are they primarily people who are suffering from food insecurity?
Not necessarily. I can tell you a perfect example is UMass-Dartmouth provides over 500 students a season just to work in our fields. We do have recipients who are receiving our food who do come out and volunteer, but also obviously community members, specifically in Dartmouth alone, there are thousands.
And that was another question I have. It seems that it would be important for people who are suffering from food insecurity actually participate in food access, and I'm wondering what kinds of programs are being put into place for that so that people are connecting. They're not simply going to pick up food somewhere, but they're connecting with how the food is grown and so forth.
Yeah, I can share with you a couple of examples. So I am aware of a few of the other agencies that are part of our network. They have recipients who are receiving food in their food pantries are actually working in the food pantries, handing out the product. When the product comes to the food pantry, they might be involved in washing the produce. But those pantries are doing a lot more than just what Sharing the Harvest provides or any other farm in this community is providing. So they are having an active role. We would agree with you that it's important that they have an important stake in the process because that's what eventually gets people out of poverty. By working as a team and being part of that process, that gets them and lifts them up out of that system.
What time is that meeting?
10 a.m. Late meeting? Too late for it?
Well, and I would just kind of remind folks that you don't have to attend those meetings to get involved. The food shed analysis or the food system assessment is really a subcommittee of that project. And so if you're interested, make sure you get contact information to either of us, and we will keep you in the loop going forward.
Have efforts been made to contact local community gardens for their surplus?
Yeah, that's one of the major goals of our group is to begin that process. We have not gotten there yet. Once our new coordinator's on board, we'll be able to do a lot more of that. A lot of our agencies that serve on this committee also have their regular operations that they're running. So there's a lot of us, are volunteering our time to help move this forward. So this coordinator will help to make that process happen.
Thank you.
Yes,
If I
James.
may add to that, with help from the Island Foundation, part of what I'm doing as part of the Regional Council on Sustainability in UMass-Dartmouth is actually going around and compiling data on the community gardens, and just recently attending a statewide meeting on food shelters and things of that nature and trying to connect them. So we're just starting to kind of push forward again as kind of like subcommittees of the Food Security Network. We're trying.
I just want to jump in real quick on CNAP's efforts in helping
Yeah.
to start a gleaning program. That's one of our questions on our survey. Again, I'll reiterate the importance of that. We've also got a great, already received a great response on farms that want to participate, as well as volunteers, and then financial support. As money's been a theme, unfortunately, throughout the day, that's one of the areas that we are focused on to get our gleaning program started, hopefully even this season would be fantastic, and to feed into this group, which is why CMAP, I'm a co-chair, and CMAP's at the table, because we feel that food access is a main component of CMAP's mission. It is in our mission specifically. So please feel free to get in touch with me directly, and again on the survey, to document the commitment to getting a gleaning program started and getting, one of the components of our plan, our written plan of the program, is to have recipients of the food serve as volunteers in harvesting the food and delivering it to the pantry that they perhaps would pick their own food up from. We do have an application going in just a couple weeks to Ben & Jerry's, so we'll see if we can get this launched this year. So I just want to jump in and put that out there.
All right. Thank you very much.
Speaking of gleaning, Martha Yules, who I guess stepped out again, but Martha Yules has just been driving in the snow to bring us our lunch from Ben & Jerry's, or Ben & Jerry's. I'm right here at Miss Joe's. I was really asked, it's laid out very nicely in the lobby, if people could get their meal and bring it back in quickly so that we have an opportunity to really hear our next panel of speakers.
I can just add one other thing is we have a table out there with lots of information about educational events going on for both gardeners and farmers, and there's also, I brought in a handful of books, half a dozen or so, that discuss some of the issues that we're looking at with the food shed assessment.
Thank you.